Namaste, everybody, and welcome to today's Facebook Live broadcast. Today we're also live on Instagram, so I would like to just welcome everybody from Facebook and from Instagram. We're here to learn about the Vata Kapha combination, and this is what we will be discussing today. As always, at the end of my talk, which will be for about 20 minutes, I'll be taking your questions, and so the last 10 minutes of today's broadcast will be about anything that you would like to hear about. And so you can type in at any time into your chat browser, and my assistant will be recording and writing down your questions, and then she'll be bringing them to me, and I'll be happy to address them. So why don't we begin? So Vata Kapha combination. This is a unique and a beautiful combination. It offers challenges to understand and also challenges to manage. Yet with a little bit of knowledge, you can do quite well. Also, people with a Vata Kapha combination also have beautiful gifts that they bring into the world, and so we're going to discuss those as well. I'd like to welcome those of you that are just starting to log in. I'd like to welcome Rajesh and Paula. Welcome to the broadcast today. It's nice to have you here. Now, let's first talk about each of them individually, Vata and Kapha, to help us to understand the combination. Now, if you've seen any of the other broadcasts or read books on Ayurveda, then you understand that Vata is made up of the elements air and ether, and that gives it its unique qualities. So the Vata Dosha has the qualities of being cold and dry, light, mobile, and sharp. These are 5 of its 10 qualities. I'm going to try to keep it simple for the brevity of the broadcast today. So we'll focus on those 5 qualities. So these qualities are inherent within the elements, and the elements make up the nature of the person. Now, we all have all 5 elements within us, but we have a predominant of certain elements, and those elements create the constitution. Now, people with a Kapha nature have what appears to be the opposite entirely. People with a Kapha nature tend to have more water and earth in their constitution. That's what makes up the dosha that is Kapha. And having those heavier elements, their qualities are cold and moist, heavy, stable, and dull. So almost every quality is the opposite for Kapha than it is for Vata. And that's really unique. So you have to sit there and wonder, well, if I'm Vata Kapha combination, am I going to be heavy or light? Because Vata is light and Kapha is heavy. Am I going to be very mobile and be moving quickly, or am I going to be more sedentary like Kapha? And so these opposites make it difficult to fully comprehend and to fully understand. What is easy to understand is what they have in common. What they have in common is the quality of coldness, because both Vata and Kapha lack the fire element. And in lacking the fire element, they both tend to be cool. Now, if we look at then how they're going to merge together, we could say that a person with a Vata Kapha nature is cold, and then all the other elements or all the other qualities rather, are more moderate. That's one way to look at it. So we could say, well, they're not too heavy, not too light, not too moist, not too dry, not too mobile, not too stable. That's one way to look at it, but it's still a little bit confusing, and it's not entirely accurate. So let's go a little bit deeper into that. Before we do, I want to welcome those of you that are still logging in. I want to welcome Natalie and Holly, Ragna, and just want to welcome you. Thank you for attending today's broadcast. So when Vata and Kapha come together, yes, they are cold. Now, what is interesting is that people with a Vata Kapha body type can be mistaken as Pitta. They can be mistaken as Pitta because they have so many moderate qualities. Not too heavy, not too light, not too moist, not too dry. Pitta, for those of you that know more about Pitta, tends to sometimes be in the middle of Vata and Kapha. And yet, people with a Vata Kapha nature lack that fire and all the qualities that come with fire, like passion and intensity and determination, and of course feeling hot. So they're not the same as a person with a Pitta nature, yet they're easily mistaken as that because of the moderation of so many of the qualities. People with a Vata Kapha body type tend to have a soft body. That's maybe the first thing that I notice when I look at Vata Kapha. They have a moderate body, but it's a soft body, and it's a soft energy as well. Kapha tends to have a sweet energy, and we associate the sweet taste with Kapha because the sweet taste is also made up of water and earth. So they have a sweet energy. People with a Vata nature tend to have a light energy about them, a light, bubbly nature, or just a light, more etheric nature. So in a way, when Vata and Kapha come together, you get a light, sweet energy that you see in a person, which is very, very different than the Pitta energy, which tends to be more focused, directed, serious, passionate, driven energy. And that's one of the things that immediately tells you this person's not a Pitta. This person is a Vata Kapha combination. They may have some of the mixed qualities. They may have a longer body type, but yet they may have this softer flesh that you see with Kapha. It's a sweet energy. A person of Vata Kapha nature, they can be heavy. Let's talk about that for a minute. Doesn't mean that they're going to be heavy, but when Vata Kapha nature or Prakriti goes out of balance, becomes Vikriti, what happens is that Vata pushes the Kapha further out of balance. Let's talk about what that means. This means that when a person is anxious, worried, overwhelmed, or going through change in their lives, this disturbs the Vata dosha. Now, in response to that, a person with a Vata Kapha nature may gain weight. That's just one of the possibilities. They may gain weight. It's one of the main reasons why people are overweight, is doing what I would call anxiety eating. And so when you're anxious and you start looking in the refrigerator for things to eat and you start eating mindlessly, a person gains a lot of weight. But that weight is a very soft weight. It's not a very heavy, stocky, muscular weight. It is a softer weight. And that is the weight of Vata Kapha. And it's a different kind of weight when it's just Kapha that goes out of balance by itself. When Kapha goes out of balance by itself, there's more stockiness, more sturdiness. But with a Vata Kapha imbalance, that weight tends to be softer. We could call it more etheric or airy weight on the body. So it is a softer weight. People with a Vata Kapha nature, Prakriti, have more of that softness, more of that tissue that is there all of the time. And sometimes it seems like it's covering a Vata type body. There might be Vata type bones covered by more of an etheric, airy, fatty tissue that is covering the body. So it's a softer type of a body. We could also use the word maybe voluptuous for that softness of the body, because when I think of Kapha, I think by itself, I think of sturdiness. And when I think of Vata Kapha, I think of voluptuous softness in the body. So it's not dense. If we look at how to treat a person with a Vata Kapha nature, we want to use the opposite qualities. Now, it's easy to understand what the opposite of cold is. So a person of Vata Kapha nature needs more warm substances in Ayurveda. And we know that warm generally refers to things that, if we're talking about diet, things that are cooked or things that are spicy. This tends to warm up the body. There are warm colors, there are warm aromas. They need more warmth in their body. But that by itself isn't enough to really fully understand what to do. People with a Vata Kapha nature have this interesting and unique expression. The mind tends to move quickly, like a Vata, while the body tends to move slowly, like a Kapha. And this is because the substrate of the body is earth. The body is, by its nature, very solid, very earth-centered. It has an innately more Kapha nature to it, just being structure. The mind doesn't have that structure. The mind is more innately Vata, more innately prana. It is this subtle, light, airy substance that is easily disturbed and easily moved. So when a person has a Vata Kapha nature, we often see a person who says, well, my mind is more like a Vata. I think a lot, I talk quickly, I move quickly, I worry a lot. Maybe I don't sleep so well, not all the time. But the body seems to be carrying a little bit of extra weight. Okay, so that's the Vata Kapha combination, and particularly when Vata goes out of balance. That's a very common thing. So then what do we do in order to bring a person with a Vata Kapha nature back into balance? If they're so opposite each other, and anybody who's ever studied Ayurveda ponders this question, it seems that if we increase, or if we balance Vata, we make Kapha worse. If we balance Kapha, we make Vata worse. If you're heavy and you go on a diet and you fast, you increase the lightness, then Vata rises, and maybe there's more anxiety and more worry. So we have this difficult combination. So here's how I approach it. First of all, let's talk about tastes and diet for a person with a Vata Kapha nature. So I like to see a person with a Vata Kapha nature or a Vata Kapha imbalance follow more of a Vata pacifying food program that is taken in moderation. Now, let me explain that a little further. So a Vata pacifying food program is one that is deeply nourishing. It is one that has more earth and more water in it. It's one that tends to build tissue. It nourishes the body and it nourishes the mind. It is stabilizing, and that's very important. People with Vata Kapha natures need that emotional support, that emotional stability within them in order to stay centered, in order to stay grounded. However, those same foods that you would see on a Vata balancing diet aggravate Kapha. So there is a very special rule in Ayurveda that says when you take something that is heavy in small quantities, it becomes light. Isn't that interesting? When you take something that's heavy in small quantities, it becomes light. In other words, you can get all of the deep nourishment of the earth and the water from the Vata pacifying food program, but when it's taken in small amounts, it won't aggravate the Kapha Dosha. And in fact, it'll balance the Kapha Dosha if it's taken in just the right proportion. So you can actually lose weight and balance Vata at the same time. So that means having more of the cooked vegetables and having some more of the nourishing grains and the nourishing nuts, these foods that we might consider to be more comfort foods. But I'm not talking about sweets. I'm not talking about candy and ice cream and junk foods. Absolutely not. I don't mean that at all, even though those have the sweet taste. I mean the healthy sweet tastes. Rice is a healthy sweet taste. Quinoa has a sweetness to it. The root vegetables has a sweet taste, and so do nuts and oils. So all of these foods need to be taken. They just need to be taken in smaller quantities. So there's a rule in Ayurveda to not eat beyond being 75% full. And this is essential for balancing the Kapha Dosha. So we want to make sure that we're never full. And that's going to be different for each person. We want to be satisfied, but not full. And depending upon your state of Agni, which tends to be lower in a person with a Vata Kapha nature, will determine how much you need to eat before you become full, before you reach that 75%. People with a Pitta nature, for instance, can eat a lot before feeling that they're satisfied. But people with a Vata Kapha nature tend to only need a little bit of food. So they need to pay attention to how they feel inside their belly. And if you're starting to feel a little heavy, like the food is not fully digesting, you're satisfied, you could eat because you enjoy it, but you're satisfied. That's the time to really stop. That's an important component to balancing the Vata Kapha type. Now, the tastes that are going to be beneficial, the Vata tastes are sweet, sour, and salty. The Kapha taste is pungent. We want all four of those tastes. And in fact, we want plenty of pungent spice to add to the heavy quality of the food, because this is another rule in Ayurveda. When you add pungent spices to a heavy food, you make that food not only more digestible, you make it lighter. So this food should be very, very well spiced, and it should be a little on the hotter side for a Vata Kapha person in order to bring them into balance. All right, we've talked about the strategy with food in order to balance Vata Kapha. Now what I want to do is I want to talk about the lifestyle to balance Vata Kapha, because this is very, very important. I've talked about how Vata tends to have this lighter mind, and the mind can move about and cause some anxiety and can cause some challenges. One of the ways to keep Vata in balance is by developing very healthy routines, very stable, steady routines. Now, typically steady routines increase Kapha, but because we're going to have that light diet, we're not going to increase the Kapha. The diet's far more important. So we can manage the Kapha through the lightness of the diet with small portions while having very, very steady routines. Now, what does that mean? Well, your routines start as soon as you wake up in the morning. So wake up at the same time every day, regardless of how you slept the night before. Wake up at the same time every day. Start eating at the same times every day. Have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it's okay to have 3 meals, but if you're satisfied with 2 meals, that's okay too. 2 meals is wonderful for balancing the Kapha Dosha. And as long as you're having those Vata pacifying foods in the proper quantities, then a person with a Vata Kapha nature can do fine with 2 meals per day. So 2 or 3 meals per day. No need to eat more than that. All right, but eat at the same time every day. This is going to be particularly important. So it should be like clockwork: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, maybe 4 to 5 hours apart. So maybe eat at 7, 12, let's say 5 or 6 hours apart, 7, 12, and 5 or 6 o'clock at night, and have your dinner. And try not to snack, and just try to stay regular with that. And that's going to be very important. So the routines really matter. And then go to bed at the same time every night as well. Go to bed at the same time every night, wake up at the same time every morning. Now, if you say, well, I have a hard time going to bed or sleeping at night, so sometimes I sleep in the mornings. Don't sleep in the mornings. Get up anyway. Trust me with this one. Just try this for a little while. Get up at the same time every day, even if you have to set your clock, even if you didn't sleep well. Because what will happen is your body will start developing the sleep routine, and it'll start getting into the rhythm. After a few days, you will start to sleep better, because you're going to get tired. If you didn't sleep all night and you still got up at 6 o'clock, then you're going to get tired after a while. And the routine is important. There's much more to talk about with sleep, and we'll probably do a whole video eventually about sleep. But right now, I just wanted to discuss that. So it's the importance of regular routines. Now, what other routines do you have in your life? You know, what other routines do you have in your life that need to be made more steady? Sometimes it's not about the routine in your life, it's the lack of routine. And it's the lack of routine that really disturbs Vata and then pushes Kapha out of balance. So where might you see a lack of routine? If your job is taking you to many different sites, that can be a challenge. Let's say you're on the road all the time driving as a salesperson. That's going to aggravate the Vata dosha and then eventually the Kapha dosha. Or if you're working an overnight shift or irregular hours, irregular is the key. That aggravates the Vata dosha. So you want to try to have your lifestyle become as regular as possible. And you may say, oh, that's not possible for me given my circumstances. I understand it's difficult sometimes, and yet we can't balance the Vata dosha and ultimately our constitution unless we start to develop those healthy, steady routines. And so you might find your place. You might find yourself between a rock and a hard spot on that one. And I often tell my patients, until you're able to develop some steadiness, you can't expect to get back into balance. So that's going to be very, very important. All right, at this time now, it's time to start taking some of the questions that you have. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to type them in. My assistant is going to be writing them down and bringing them to me, and hopefully it'll lead to some interesting discussions. So the first question that I have here in front of me says, if a Vata pushing a Kapha Vikruti has a person experiencing anxiety, heaviness, and depression, one should treat Vata first, with a question mark. But if adding more heavy quality to Vata, the person will feel more depressed and sluggish. This is such a great question, and it's so important to talk about. So first of all, most people think of depression as a Kapha problem because it is a heaviness. You don't want to get out of bed. It looks a lot like Kapha. It looks a lot like Kapha, but depression, especially a deep depression, is actually not due to Kapha. It's due to the Vata dosha being disturbed. Now I have to explain that. What happens is when Vata is disturbed, it'll destroy what we call ojas in Ayurveda, which is what stabilizes the body and stabilizes the mind. Now, when the ojas becomes too depleted, it can't hold on to the prana, which is life energy. And then the life energy dissipates. And then what happens is we start feeling very depressed. Vata type depression is very common. And when it mixes with anxiety and a person has anxiety and depression together, that's when you know it really is due to Vata. What Kapha experiences is melancholy, and that's different. Melancholy is what we might consider a low-grade depression or just a lack of motivation, a lack of inspiration. It's a mild depression. It's a loss of drive. A person of Kapha nature has a heavier, earthy nature. They don't move as quickly. They're not motivated as much. They're prone to a low-grade, what other people might call a low-grade depression. People of Kapha nature might just call it normal for them, and it's not depression. It's just not seeming as motivated as everyone else. Now, it could get a little worse. It could. And you can get a Kapha-type mild depression, right? As Kapha rises too much, the body becomes more and more sedate, more and more heavy, more and more sleepy. So it does happen. But the more serious depressions, and when depression is combined with anxiety, that's a tip that it's really due to Vata. Now, that having been said, yes, treat Vata first. In fact, when Vata mixes with another dosha in an imbalance in the Vikruti, always treat Vata first. Always treat Vata first. Vata is the king of the doshas. It's what moves all the doshas out of balance. So if Vata is out of balance, it can push Pitta out of balance. It can push Kapha out of balance. So Vata is the most easily disturbed dosha, and it's the most important one to bring back into balance. Now, if you have a heaviness and you say, but I'm going to treat that Vata, I'm going to get heavier, because a lot of people are worried about that. Don't worry about that. Not if you follow the rules that I just talked about, which means eating only until you're 75% full. That's going to be very important. And eat small quantities of the heavy foods and have a Kapha balance, a Vata balancing lifestyle. And you won't gain weight. In fact, you're going to be surprised that you're going to lose weight. You will lose weight eating the Vata balancing foods. I know it seems oxymoronic, but when you have them in small quantities, you really will. You'll lose weight. Now, the next question that I have on here is, do we use more pungent? Do we use more pungent tastes to balance it? And the answer is yes. You definitely want to use more pungent tastes, because pungent taste is warm, and we want more warmth in the body to balance the coldness of Vata and the coldness of Kapha. That's going to be very important. Now, the pungent taste tends to dry out Vata, but you don't have to worry about that, because you're also going to be taking some sweet taste. And the sweet taste has a moistness to it. And you're also going to be taking some salty tastes and some sour tastes, and these balance the Vata dosha. So you want sweet, sour, salty, and pungent, and you want a lot of pungent. You want a lot of pungent. In fact, the more nourishing the food, the more it should be spiced. All right? The more it should be spiced. And it's okay to spice it quite hot. It really is. It's okay to do that. All right. So use more of the of the pungents. By the way, if you have any other questions, well, you're welcome to be typing them, and my assistant is reading the board and will be bringing me your questions as time allows. Now, the next question that is here is, well, what about a Vata Kapha type sinusitis? All right, so you've got an imbalance now, and it has relocated into the sinuses. And a Vata Kapha type sinusitis is going to be one that is, I guess we could say that it's going to have a moderate amount of mucus. It could run, it might not run. It is not yellow or green mucus. It's not yellow or green mucus, which tends to be more of a pitta type of mucus. It's often dry and sometimes running and clear. All right. So this is a Vata Kapha type sinusitis. And you say, well, what do you do about that? Well, obviously, clinical care is more complex, but I would begin to say, follow the Vata Kapha pacifying diet, take those spicy foods. In fact, spices clear out the sinuses real well, so make sure they're really, really well spiced. And then, of course, use the medicines that we use in Ayurveda for sinusitis, use neti and use nasya, and work with a practitioner that can put specific herbs into the neti and into the nasya that will treat the sinusitis. So that's going to be important. And another person asked about treating Vata Kapha type diabetes. Vata Kapha type diabetes. Oh, actually, it's about Vata diabetes. Well, that's a little bit of a different subject than the Vata Kapha diabetes, but Vata type diabetic tends toward being the most difficult to treat, because oftentimes those are insulin dependent, and it requires a deeper discussion to really go into. A question came up: is there a good link or a quiz to take to determine your prakriti and your vikruti? I will shamelessly promote my book, Healing Your Life, Lessons on the Path of Ayurveda. There is a good quiz in there that you can take, and will help you determine both your prakriti and your vikruti. But every introductory book on Ayurveda will have some kind of a questionnaire in there, and there are many online that you can go to in order to get an idea. All that said, whether we're talking about my book or somebody else's book, there is nothing that is going to substitute for a good evaluation by a qualified Ayurvedic practitioner. All right, somebody who has the skill, the knowledge, and the experience to see through the illusion of your vikruti toward your prakriti, see through the illusion of the imbalance toward your true self. And that is important. So always see a practitioner if you have a more complex case. Another person asked, if they're eating only 2 meals, what time should they eat? I like to have people eat at around 10 o'clock and 6 o'clock. That seems to be a good amount of time. It's about 8 hours between the meals. They're digesting their food slowly, so it satisfies them. And when you get into a routine eating 2 meals per day, it works well for a person with a Vata Kapha nature. All right. Now, what kind of exercise is going to be good for a person with a Vata Kapha nature? Well, what's going to be good for a person with a Vata Kapha nature is going to be to do moderate exercise. You don't want to do too much and get too much motion in the body, because that's going to translate to the mind and ultimately create more anxiety. At the same time, you don't want to be lethargic and aggravating the kapha. So this is a situation where you want to have in between. You want to have the moderate amount of exercise. Okay, so you don't want to be a long distance runner or a long distance biker. You want to do more steady, regular, routine-based exercise every single day, 7 days per week, but just not in excess. So let's say you're going for a walk. You can walk for 30 minutes every single day, 45 minutes every single day. Okay, that would be wonderful. If you're younger and you want to do a little more stronger exercise, you can do a little more stronger exercise, but don't push yourself too hard, because if you push yourself too hard, you'll aggravate the Vata dosha. How do we know when our 3 doshas are balanced? Well, we don't seek perfect balance of the 3 doshas in Ayurveda. We seek balance for ourselves. which means that we want to learn to live in harmony with our unique constitution, which is our unique balance of the three doshas. When that happens, you'll know that happens because you're going to feel good physically, you're going to feel good emotionally, and you're going to feel good spiritually. And by spiritually, what I mean is that your heart is going to be at peace, and your heart's going to be open and kind and loving, and you're going to have that experience of blissfulness, as though the world is just a wonderful place right now, and everything is going well and smooth, and you're feeling really good. And of course, you can always have that validated by an Ayurvedic practitioner who can evaluate you, but you'll know when you're in balance, because the feelings of being in balance are the feelings of being healthy. That's about the amount of time that we have today. I know you have some more questions, and you're welcome to write those in and to write those to us. If you would like more information about the California College of Ayurveda, go to our website or go to our Facebook page. You're welcome to give us a call, and one of our counselors will be happy to talk with you, whether that's on the clinical side or whether that's on the enrollment side. We have enrollment counselors, and of course we have Ayurvedic health counselors, Ayurvedic practitioners, and we also educate Ayurvedic doctors here at the college. And so no matter how deep of an education you would like, we're happy to be able to provide that for you. Many blessings to you as you continue your journey toward balance. And may you all experience that balance, because when you experience that balance, you will experience your natural true state. And your natural true state is not just one of balance, it's one of love. It's one of light. When I talk about light, I mean awareness. So when I say that your true nature is love and light, it is one of pure awareness and one of unconditional love for all of creation. So may you all find that on your journey in this lifetime. Many, many blessings. Namaste.